My name is Luna Hartwell, and I've always been different. Not in the obvious ways that make people stare or whisper behind your back, but in the quiet, inexplicable ways that make you question your own sanity. I hear things others don't. Voices that exist only in my mind. Whispers that come from nowhere. And most recently, a voice so deep and commanding that it makes my soul tremble with recognition. I never believed in werewolves until I moved to Moonhaven, a small town nestled deep in the forests of Northern California. The town has a population of barely 3,000 people, but it feels ancient, as if it's been hiding secrets for centuries. The locals are friendly enough, but there's something in their eyes, a wariness, a knowledge of things they'll never share with outsiders. I came here 6 months ago to work as a veterinarian at the local animal clinic. Dr. Sarah Chen, the clinic's owner, had been desperately searching for help after her previous assistant moved away under mysterious circumstances. The pay was decent, the work was meaningful, and most importantly, it was far enough from my old life in San Francisco to help me forget the painful memories I'd left behind. What I didn't expect was to find myself in the middle of something that would challenge everything I thought I knew about reality. It started with the dreams. Every night for the past month, I've been dreaming of a massive black wolf with silver eyes that seem to look directly into my soul. In these dreams, the wolf never speaks, but somehow I can hear his thoughts as clearly as if he were speaking aloud. His voice is deep, resonant, and filled with a loneliness that breaks my heart. "You're the one," the voice would say in my dreams. "You're the only one who can hear me." I always wake up with tears on my cheeks and a strange ache in my chest, as if I'm missing something vital. During the day, I try to convince myself they're just dreams, products of stress and adjustment to a new life. But deep down, I know there's something more. The first time I heard the voice while awake, I was treating an injured deer that some hikers had brought to the clinic. It was a beautiful creature with gentle brown eyes, but it had been attacked by something with claws and teeth far larger than any normal predator in the area. As I worked to clean and stitch the wounds, I heard it. That same deep voice from my dreams, but this time it was crystal clear and definitely not coming from inside my head. "She's beautiful when she concentrates," the voice said with what sounded like admiration. "Look at how gentle her hands are, how much she cares." I looked up sharply, expecting to see someone standing behind me, but the clinic was empty except for Dr. Chen, who was in the other room with a sick cat. The voice had been so clear, so present, that I could have sworn someone was standing right next to me. "Did you hear that?" I called out to Dr. Chen. "Hear what?" she replied, poking her head around the corner. "Someone was just—" "Never mind," I said, shaking my head. "I thought I heard something." Dr. Chen gave me a concerned look. "Luna, are you feeling all right? You've seemed distracted lately." "I'm fine," I lied, turning back to the deer. "Just tired." But as I continued working, the voice came again, softer this time, almost like a whisper meant only for me. "Don't be afraid," it said. "I would never hurt you. I've been waiting so long for someone who could hear me." This time, I didn't look up. Instead, I focused on my breathing and tried to convince myself that I was having some kind of breakdown. Stress-induced auditory hallucinations were a real thing after all. Moving to a new town, starting a new job, dealing with the trauma of my past, it was entirely possible that my mind was creating these voices as a coping mechanism. But the voice felt too real, too distinct, too present. That evening, I decided to take a walk through the forest that bordered the town. I told myself I needed fresh air and exercise, but truthfully, I was hoping to prove to myself that the voice was just in my head. If I could walk through the woods without hearing anything unusual, I could convince myself that I was just stressed and needed to see a therapist. The forest was beautiful in the fading light of dusk. Tall pine trees stretched toward the sky, their branches creating a canopy that filtered the last rays of sunlight into golden beams. The air smelled of pine needles and earth, and somewhere in the distance I could hear the gentle babbling of a stream. I had been walking for about 20 minutes when I heard the sound of branches snapping behind me. I turned around, expecting to see another hiker or maybe a deer, but the forest was empty. Still, I had the distinct feeling that I was being watched. "Hello?" I called out, feeling slightly foolish. "Is someone there?" Silence. I continued walking, but the feeling of being watched only intensified. Every few steps, I would hear the soft sound of footsteps that seemed to match my pace, but whenever I turned around, there was nothing there. Then I heard the voice again, clearer than ever before. "Don't turn around," it said urgently. "Keep walking straight ahead. There's something following you, but it's not me." My heart began to race. The voice was so clear, so immediate that I couldn't dismiss it as a hallucination. Someone, or something, was definitely speaking to me. "Who are you?" I whispered, barely breathing the words. "Someone who wants to protect you," the voice replied. "Keep walking toward the stream. I'll make sure nothing happens to you." I wanted to run, but something in the voice's tone made me trust it. There was an authority there, a confidence that made me believe that whoever was speaking really could protect me. So I kept walking, my hands trembling slightly as I followed the sound of the stream. Behind me, I heard a low growl that definitely didn't come from any normal forest animal. It was deep and menacing, the kind of sound that triggers every primal fear instinct humans have developed over thousands of years of evolution. Faster, the voice urged. Don't look back. I picked up my pace, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The growling behind me grew louder, and I could hear heavy footsteps crashing through the underbrush. Whatever was following me was big, and it was getting closer. Just as panic began to overwhelm me, I heard another sound, a howl that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It was hauntingly beautiful and terrifyingly powerful, echoing through the forest like a battle cry. The growling behind me stopped abruptly, followed by the sound of something large crashing away through the trees. "You're safe now," the voice said, and I could hear relief in it. "Whatever was following you is gone." I reached the stream and collapsed onto a fallen log, my legs shaking too badly to support me. "What just happened?" I asked aloud, not caring anymore if I looked crazy talking to invisible voices. "You were being hunted by something that shouldn't have been in this territory," the voice explained, "but it's gone now. I made sure of that." "Who are you?" I asked again. "Why can't I see you?" There was a long pause before the voice answered. "My name is Kieran Blackwood. I'm the alpha of the Moonhaven pack, and I've been cursed to remain silent for the past 5 years. You're the first person who's been able to hear my voice since the curse was placed on me." I laughed, but it came out shaky and slightly hysterical. "Werewolves. You're telling me werewolves are real, and you're one of them." "I know it sounds impossible," Kieran's voice said gently, "but you just experienced something that your rational mind can't explain. Sometimes the impossible is simply the truth we haven't accepted yet." He was right, of course. I had definitely heard something growling behind me, and something had definitely made it go away. The howl I'd heard had been unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Too powerful, too otherworldly to come from a normal wolf. "The curse," I said, trying to process what he'd told me. "What kind of curse?" "A powerful witch cursed me after I refused her advances," Kieran explained. "She said I would remain silent until I found someone who could hear my true voice, someone whose soul was connected to mine. For 5 years, I haven't been able to speak aloud, not even to my own pack members. They follow me because they trust me, but they can't hear my voice. And you think I'm that someone? I don't think it, Luna. I know it. From the moment you arrived in Moonhaven, I've been drawn to you. I've been watching over you, protecting you, hoping that somehow you would be able to hear me. And now you can." The way he said my name sent shivers down my spine. There was something intimate about it, as if he'd been saying it to himself for months. "How do you know my name?" "I know everything about you," he said, and there was no threat in his voice, only tenderness. "I know you came here to escape painful memories. I know you have a gift for healing animals that goes beyond normal veterinary training. I know you've always felt different, like you don't quite belong in the normal world." He was right about all of it, which should have terrified me. Instead, I felt a strange sense of relief, as if someone finally understood me. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now," Kieran said, "you have a choice. You can go back to your normal life and pretend this never happened. I'll make sure you're protected, but we'll never speak again. Or you can help me break this curse. But I have to warn you, Luna, if you choose to help me, your life will never be the same. You'll be drawn into a world of werewolves, magic, and dangers you can't imagine. And there's no guarantee we'll succeed." I sat by the stream for a long time, listening to the water flow over the rocks and thinking about his words. My rational mind told me to walk away, to chalk this up to stress and seek professional help. But my heart, my soul, knew that this was real, and that Kieran was telling the truth. "What would I have to do?" I asked finally. "The witch who cursed me is still alive," Kieran explained. "Her name is Morgana Blackthorn, and she lives in the mountains north of here. According to the curse, it can only be broken by someone who can hear my true voice and who willingly chooses to help me despite the dangers. And if we fail, I remain silent forever. And you," his voice trailed off. "And I what? And you become bound to me forever, sharing my curse. You would lose your voice just as I lost mine." The stakes were higher than I had imagined. If I helped him and we failed, I would lose the ability to speak for the rest of my life. But if I walked away, I would always wonder what might have been. And more than that, I would be abandoning someone who needed my help, someone who had already protected me from danger. "I'll help you," I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. "Luna," Kieran said, and I could hear the emotion in his voice. "Are you sure? Once you commit to this path, There's no going back. I'm sure, I said, standing up from the log. But I have one condition. What's that? I want to see you. If we're going to do this together, I need to know who I'm working with. There was a long pause, and then Kieran said, "Turn around." I turned, and there, standing at the edge of the tree line, was the most magnificent creature I had ever seen. He was a massive black wolf with silver eyes that seemed to glow in the fading light. His fur was thick and lustrous, and he carried himself with the unmistakable bearing of an alpha, confident, powerful, and completely in control. But it was his eyes that took my breath away. They were ancient and wise, filled with pain and loneliness, but also with hope. When our eyes met, I felt something shift inside me, as if a piece of my soul that had been missing had suddenly clicked into place. "You're beautiful," I whispered. "As are you," Kieran's voice said in my mind. "Luna Hartwell, you are the answer to 5 years of prayers. Together, we're going to break this curse and change both our destinies forever." As I looked into his silver eyes, I knew he was right. Whatever lay ahead of us, whatever dangers we would face them together. The silent alpha had found his voice in me, and I had found my purpose in him. Our journey was just beginning, but already I could feel that my life had been forever changed. The woman who had walked into these woods was gone, replaced by someone stronger, braver, and ready to fight for love and magic in a world where both were possible. The curse that had silenced Kieran for 5 years was about to meet its match, and I was ready to be the key that unlocked his voice and his heart. The next morning, I woke up wondering if the entire encounter in the forest had been an elaborate dream. But when I looked out my bedroom window, I saw a massive black wolf sitting at the edge of the tree line behind my cottage, watching my house with those unmistakable silver eyes. Even from a distance, I could feel the connection between us, an invisible thread that seemed to link our souls. "Good morning, Luna," Kieran's voice said in my mind, as clear as if he were standing next to me. "Did you sleep well?" I opened my window and leaned out. As well as can be expected after discovering that werewolves are real, and I'm apparently the only person who can hear the local alpha's voice. I could have sworn I saw him smile, though it's hard to tell with a wolf. "Your sense of humor is one of the things I admire about you. How long have you been out there?" "All night," he admitted. "I wanted to make sure you were safe. There are complications in our world that you need to understand before we proceed." "What kind of complications?" "The kind that are better explained in person. Can you meet me at the clinic after work today? There are some people I need you to meet." "People or werewolves?" "Both," Kieran said. "My pack needs to know about you, and you need to understand the dynamics you're stepping into. Not everyone is going to be happy about an outsider being able to hear me when they can't." That afternoon, I found myself more distracted than usual at work. Dr. Chen noticed my preoccupation and asked if I was feeling all right, but I couldn't exactly tell her that I was telepathically communicating with a werewolf who wanted to introduce me to his pack. "I'm fine," I said, focusing on the vaccination I was giving to a golden retriever. "Just thinking about some personal stuff." "Well, whatever it is, I hope it works out," Dr. Chen said kindly. "You've been a wonderful addition to our clinic, Luna. I'd hate to see you unhappy." Her words made me realize how much my life was about to change. If I helped Kieran break his curse, would I still be able to work as a veterinarian? Would I still be able to live a normal life in Moonhaven? Or would I be drawn completely into the werewolf world? As if he could sense my thoughts, Kieran's voice came into my mind. "Whatever happens, Luna, I'll make sure you can continue doing the work you love. Your gift for healing is too precious to waste." "You can hear my thoughts?" I asked silently, testing whether our connection worked both ways. "Only when you direct them at me," he replied, "and only when your emotions are particularly strong. It's part of the bond between us." "Bond? Something we'll discuss tonight. Are you almost finished at the clinic?" I glanced at the clock. It was nearly 6 and my last appointment had just left. "Give me 10 minutes to close up. I'll be waiting in the forest behind the clinic. Follow the path that leads north until you reach a clearing with a large oak tree in the center." 20 minutes later, I found myself walking deeper into the forest than I had ever gone before. The path was well-worn but narrow, clearly used regularly by something larger than the average hiker. As I walked, I became aware of sounds in the forest around me. Rustling in the bushes, the soft pad of footsteps, the occasional snap of a twig. I wasn't alone. "Don't be afraid," Kieran's voice said. "My pack is curious about you, but they won't harm you. They're just protective." "How many of them are there?" 12 adults, plus 3 teenagers who haven't fully shifted yet. We're a small pack, but we're close-knit. I reached the clearing just as the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows through the trees. The oak tree Kieran had mentioned was enormous, easily over 100 years old, with branches that spread out like protective arms over the entire clearing. Kieran was waiting for me in his wolf form, but he wasn't alone. Arranged in a semicircle around the clearing were 11 other wolves of various sizes and colors. Some were as large as Kieran, clearly alphas or betas in their own right, while others were smaller and more delicate. All of them were watching me with intelligent eyes that held far too much awareness to belong to ordinary wolves. "Luna," Kieran said, "I'd like you to meet my pack." As he spoke, something extraordinary happened. One by one, the wolves began to shift, their forms blurring and changing until they stood before me as humans. The transformation was beautiful and terrifying, like watching magic happen in real time. When the shifting was complete, I found myself facing 12 people who looked like they could have been models or athletes. They were all tall, fit, and carried themselves with the same confident bearing I had noticed in Kieran, but their eyes still held the wildness of their wolf forms. A woman with long auburn hair and green eyes stepped forward. She was beautiful in a fierce, untamed way, and when she looked at me, I could see both curiosity and suspicion in her gaze. "So you're the human who can hear our alpha's voice," she said, her tone neutral but not unfriendly. "I'm Maya Silvermoon, Kieran's beta." "Luna Hartwell," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite the surreal nature of the situation. "It's nice to meet you all." A man with dark hair and amber eyes laughed. "She's taking this remarkably well for a human who just discovered werewolves are real. That's because she's not entirely human," said an elderly woman with silver hair and kind eyes. "I can sense it in her aura. There's something different about her, something that explains why she can hear what we cannot." "What do you mean, not entirely human?" I asked, feeling a chill run down my spine. The elderly woman stepped closer, and I could feel power radiating from her like heat from a fire. "My name is Elena Moonwhisper, and I'm the pack's healer and spiritual advisor. With your permission, I'd like to examine your energy." I looked at Kieran, who had remained in his wolf form. "Is it safe?" "Elena is the most powerful healer I've ever known," his voice said in my mind. "If anyone can understand what makes you special, it's her." I nodded to Elena, who placed her hands on either side of my head without actually touching me. I could feel warmth spreading through my body, and for a moment my vision blurred, and I saw flashes of images I didn't understand. Forests, moonlight, a woman with my face but different clothes, and always, the sound of wolves howling. Elena stepped back, her eyes wide with surprise. "Remarkable," she breathed. "Luna, you're not just human. You have werewolf ancestry, probably from several generations back. That's why you can hear Kieran's voice. You have just enough wolf blood to connect with our spiritual energy." "That's impossible," I said. "My family is from Ireland. We have extensive genealogical records going back centuries. There are no werewolves in my family tree. Werewolves have existed all over the world for millennia," Elena explained gently. "Many of our kind integrated into human society so completely that their descendants never knew about their heritage. But the blood remembers, even when the mind forgets." Maya stepped forward, her expression softening slightly. "That explains a lot. I was wondering how a full human could form a telepathic bond with an alpha, but if you have wolf blood, even diluted, it means she's one of us," said a young man with blonde hair and blue eyes. "I'm Tyler, by the way, and I think it's amazing that you can hear Kieran. Do you know how frustrating it's been for all of us trying to follow an alpha who can't speak?" "Tyler," Maya warned, "show some respect." "No, he's right," Kieran's voice said, and I realized that I was the only one who could hear him. "Luna, would you mind translating for me? I want to address my pack. Kieran wants to speak to all of you," I said, feeling strange about being a translator. "He says Tyler is right about the frustration of following a silent alpha." The pack members exchanged glances, and I could see the relief on their faces at the prospect of finally hearing from their leader. "Tell them," Kieran continued, "that I know how difficult these past 5 years have been. I know they've had to make decisions without my input, had to guess at my intentions, had to trust in a bond they couldn't hear or feel. Tell them that their loyalty has meant everything to me." I repeated his words, and I saw several pack members wipe away tears. The emotional weight of 5 years of silence was evident in their faces. "Tell them," Kieran went on, "that Luna represents hope. Not just hope for breaking my curse, but hope for our pack's future. She's not just someone who can hear me. She's someone who can help us bridge the gap between the werewolf world and the human world." As I translated, I noticed that the pack members were looking at me with new interest. Whatever suspicion they had initially felt was being replaced by curiosity and, in some cases, what looked like hope. "But," Kieran's voice became more serious, "they need to understand that helping me break this curse will put Luna in danger. Morgana Blackthorn is not just a witch. She's one of the most powerful dark magic users on the West Coast. She won't give up her hold on me easily. When I repeated this, the mood in the clearing became more somber. What kind of danger are we talking about? Asked a woman with short black hair and intense dark eyes. Morgana has been known to use blood magic, curses, and summoning spells. Elena answered before I could translate Kieran's response. If she realizes that someone can hear Kieran's voice, she'll see Luna as a threat to her power over him. So what's the plan? Tyler asked. We can't just walk up to a powerful witch and ask her nicely to break the curse. Actually, Elena said thoughtfully, there might be a way. Morgana's curse was specific. It can only be broken by someone who can hear Kieran's true voice and who willingly chooses to help him. But curses like this often have loopholes. What kind of loopholes? I asked. The curse was designed to ensure that Kieran would remain silent until he found his true mate, Elena explained. Morgana assumed that would never happen, because she believed she was his destined partner. But if Luna can hear his voice, it means the magical bond between them is stronger than the one Morgana tried to force. Are you saying Luna is Kieran's mate? Maya asked, and I could hear something like jealousy in her voice. I'm saying the magic recognizes a connection between them that supersedes Morgana's curse, Elena replied diplomatically. Whether that connection is romantic, spiritual, or something else entirely remains to be seen. I felt my cheeks burning. The idea of being magically bonded to someone I had just met was overwhelming, even if that someone was as compelling as Kieran. What does this mean for breaking the curse? I asked, trying to focus on the practical aspects rather than the emotional implications. It means, Elena said, that we might not need to confront Morgana directly. If the bond between you and Kieran is strong enough, you might be able to break the curse through a ritual that strengthens your connection. What kind of ritual? Kieran asked, and I dutifully translated. Elena smiled. A mating ceremony. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel every pair of eyes in the clearing focused on me, waiting for my reaction. A mating ceremony, I repeated slowly. As in marriage? As in a spiritual bonding that would make you and Kieran permanent partners in both the human and werewolf worlds. Elena clarified. It's not something to be undertaken lightly, Luna. A werewolf mating bond is for life, and it would change you in ways you can't imagine. Change me how? You would gain some werewolf abilities, enhanced senses, increased strength, accelerated healing. You would also become part of the pack hierarchy with all the responsibilities that entails. I looked at Kieran, who was watching me with those intense silver eyes. What do you think about all this? I think, his voice said softly in my mind, that I would be honored to have you as my mate, but only if it's what you truly want. I won't ask you to sacrifice your humanity for my freedom, and if I say no, then we find another way to break the curse, even if it means confronting Morgana directly. The weight of the decision was enormous. I had come to Moonhaven looking for a quiet life where I could heal from my past and help animals. Instead, I had discovered a world of magic and werewolves, and now I was being asked to consider a supernatural marriage to someone I had known for less than 24 hours. But as I looked into Kieran's eyes, I realized that the connection I felt to him wasn't based on time or conventional logic. It was something deeper, something that felt like recognition rather than attraction, as if my soul had been waiting for his voice, and his voice had been waiting for someone who could hear it. I need time to think about this, I said finally. Of course, Elena said kindly. This is not a decision to be made hastily. Take all the time you need. But, Maya added, you should know that Morgana has been more active lately. Our scouts have reported strange magical disturbances in the mountains, and there have been sightings of creatures that shouldn't exist in this realm. What kind of creatures? I asked. Shadow wolves, Tyler said grimly. Morgana's pets. They're not real wolves. They're manifestations of dark magic, and they're completely under her control. Why is she becoming more active now? Because she can sense that something has changed, Elena explained. Magic recognizes magic, and the bond between you and Kieran is creating ripples in the supernatural energy of this area. Morgana knows that her hold on Kieran is being threatened, so I'm already in danger, whether I agree to the mating ceremony or not. I'm afraid so, Elena said gently. But if you choose to bond with Kieran, you'll have the full protection of the pack, and you'll have access to powers that could help you defend yourself. As the pack began to disperse, each member coming up to introduce themselves properly and welcome me, I found myself overwhelmed by the complexity of the situation I had stumbled into. These people, these werewolves, were offering me a place in their world. But the price was everything I had known about myself and my life. Luna, Kieran's voice said as the clearing emptied, I want you to know that whatever you decide, I'm grateful that you can hear me. For 5 years, I've been trapped in silence, unable to lead my pack the way they deserve. Just knowing that someone can hear my voice again, It's given me hope I thought I'd lost forever. Kieran, I said aloud since we were alone, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you believe in fate? There was a long pause before he answered. I believe that some connections transcend logic and explanation. I believe that you didn't come to Moonhaven by accident, and I don't think it's a coincidence that you're the first person in 5 years who can hear my voice. So you think we're meant to be together? I think, he said carefully, that we're meant to help each other. Whether that leads to something more, that's up to us to discover. As I walked back through the forest toward my cottage, I realized that my life had reached a crossroads. I could choose safety and normalcy, or I could choose magic and danger and the possibility of something extraordinary. The silent alpha had found his voice in me, but the question remained, was I brave enough to help him use it? 3 days after meeting Kieran's pack, I was still wrestling with the decision about the mating ceremony when the choice was taken out of my hands. I was working late at the clinic, finishing up paperwork, when every light in the building suddenly went out. Dr. Chen, I called, but I remembered she had left hours ago. I was alone. The emergency lighting should have kicked in immediately, but the clinic remained pitch black. Even stranger, I couldn't hear any of the usual sounds from outside. No traffic, no wind, no night birds. It was as if the world had been wrapped in a blanket of unnatural silence. Kieran? I whispered, hoping our connection would work. But for the first time since I'd been able to hear his voice, there was no response. The silence in my mind was as complete as the darkness around me. I fumbled for my phone, but the screen remained black even though I knew it had been fully charged. Whatever was happening, it was affecting all forms of technology. That's when I heard the laughter. It started as a low chuckle that seemed to come from everywhere at once, then grew into full-throated laughter that made my skin crawl. It was the sound of someone who found genuine amusement in others' fear. So, said a woman's voice, rich and melodious but with an underlying current of malice, you're the little human who thinks she can steal my alpha from me. A figure materialized in the darkness, literally materialized, as if she were made of shadows that suddenly decided to take human form. She was stunningly beautiful, with long black hair that seemed to move with a life of its own, pale skin that glowed with an inner light, and eyes that shifted color from green to gold to silver as I watched. Morgana Blackthorn, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. Oh, you know who I am. How delightful. She smiled, revealing teeth that were just a little too sharp to be entirely human. I must say, I'm impressed. Most humans would be cowering in terror by now. I'm not most humans. No, you're not, are you? Morgana circled me like a predator, and I noticed that her feet didn't quite touch the ground. You have wolf blood in you. Diluted, distant, but definitely there. That explains how you can hear my dear Kieran's voice. He's not yours, I said, standing my ground despite every instinct telling me to run. Isn't he? Morgana laughed again. Child, I've owned Kieran Blackwood for 5 years. Every breath he takes, every thought he thinks, every beat of his heart, all of it belongs to me. The curse is just the beginning, Morgana interrupted. Did you really think I would go to all the trouble of silencing the most powerful alpha on the West Coast just to keep him quiet? Oh no, my dear. The silence was just the first phase. What do you mean? I mean that every day Kieran remains under my curse, my hold on him grows stronger. Soon, he won't just be unable to speak. He'll be unable to think for himself. He'll become my perfect puppet, and his pack will follow him into whatever darkness I choose. The implications of her words hit me like a physical blow. You're planning to use him to control other werewolf packs. Very good. You're not just a pretty face, are you? Morgana clapped her hands together in mock applause. Yes, I'm building an army. Werewolves are so much more useful than humans. Stronger, faster, more loyal once you know how to control them. And with Kieran as my general, no pack will be able to resist. That's why you cursed him specifically. Not because he rejected you, but because you needed an alpha powerful enough to unite other packs under your control. Rejection was certainly part of it, Morgana admitted, her eyes flashing with anger. Do you know how humiliating it was to offer myself to him, only to be turned down? Me. I could have given him power beyond his wildest dreams, and he chose to remain a simple pack leader in a backwater town, so you decided to take his choice away. I decided to teach him the consequences of defying me. But then you came along, didn't you? Little Luna Hartwell, with just enough wolf blood to hear what others cannot. You're threatening to undo 5 years of careful planning. Good, I said defiantly. Morgana's expression darkened, and the temperature in the room dropped by at least 20 degrees. You have no idea what you're dealing with, child. I've been practicing magic for over 3 centuries. I've toppled kingdoms, destroyed armies, and broken the minds of men far stronger than you. Then why are you here talking to me instead of just killing me? Because, Morgana said, her voice becoming silky and persuasive. I'm going to give you a choice. A real choice. Not the fantasy your werewolf friends have been feeding you. What kind of choice? Leave Moonhaven tonight. Go back to your old life. Forget you ever heard Kieran's voice. And I'll let you live. I'll even throw in a little gift. I'll erase all your memories of werewolves and magic. You can go back to being a simple veterinarian with no knowledge of the supernatural world. And if I refuse? If you refuse? Morgana's form began to shift and grow, becoming more monstrous with each passing second. I'll make you watch as I turn Kieran into my mindless slave. Then I'll kill his pack one by one, starting with the youngest. And when you're broken and begging for death, I'll trap your soul in a crystal and use your connection to Kieran to torture him for eternity. The casual way she described such horrific acts made my blood run cold. This wasn't just a powerful witch. This was a creature of pure evil, who found joy in causing suffering. You're insane, I whispered. I'm practical, Morgana corrected. Power is the only thing that matters in this world, and I have more power than you can possibly imagine. Your little alpha learned that lesson too late. Don't make the same mistake. What makes you think I'd believe you'd actually let me go? If I'm such a threat to your plans, why wouldn't you just kill me now? Because killing you would only make you a martyr. Kieran would spend the rest of his cursed existence mourning you, and that kind of emotional attachment could interfere with my control over him. But if you leave willingly, if you abandon him by choice, it will break something inside him that will never heal. He'll be much easier to manipulate. The psychological cruelty of her plan was breathtaking. She didn't just want to control Kieran. She wanted to destroy his spirit completely. I need time to think, I said, stalling while I tried to figure out how to contact Kieran or his pack. Time? Morgana laughed. Oh, my dear child, you don't have time. You see, while we've been having this lovely chat, my shadow wolves have been surrounding the forest where Kieran's pack makes their home. One word from me, and they'll attack. Your werewolf friends are powerful, but shadow wolves are creatures of pure magic. They can't be killed by claws or teeth. You're bluffing. Am I? Morgana waved her hand, and suddenly I could see through the walls of the clinic as if they were made of glass. In the distance, I could see the forest, and moving through it like living darkness were dozens of creatures that looked like wolves made of smoke and shadow. They were surrounding the clearing where I had met the pack, and their eyes glowed with malevolent red light. One word, Morgana repeated. That's all it would take. So what's your decision, Luna Hartwell? Your life and freedom, or the destruction of everyone you've come to care about? I closed my eyes, trying to think. There had to be a way out of this, some option Morgana hadn't considered, but she was right about one thing. I was completely outmatched. I had no magic, no supernatural abilities, no way to fight a creature who had been practicing dark arts for 3 centuries. But then I remembered something Elena had said about the bond between Kieran and me. If it was strong enough to let me hear his voice despite the curse, maybe it was strong enough for other things too. I'll go, I said, opening my eyes. But I want to say goodbye to Kieran first. Absolutely not. You'll leave now, or what? You'll kill them anyway? I interrupted. We both know that's your plan regardless of what I choose. You can't risk leaving witnesses who know about your shadow wolves. Morgana's eyes narrowed. You're more clever than I gave you credit for. So let me say goodbye. What's the harm? If you're as powerful as you claim, what threat could one last conversation pose? Fine, Morgana said after a long moment, but you'll say goodbye here, now, with me listening to every word. And if you try to warn him about anything, I'll start killing his pack members immediately. She waved her hand again, and suddenly Kieran's voice filled my mind, clearer than it had ever been before. Luna, where are you? I've been trying to reach you for hours. There's something wrong. I can sense dark magic everywhere, but I can't pinpoint the source. I'm at the clinic, I said silently, hoping Morgana couldn't hear my thoughts. Kieran, I need you to listen to me very carefully. What's wrong? You sound terrified. I'm leaving Moonhaven tonight. I'm going back to my old life. The silence that followed was deafening. When Kieran finally spoke, his voice was filled with pain and confusion. Why? What happened? Did someone threaten you? No one threatened me, I lied, hating myself for the words. I just realized that this world isn't for me. I'm not brave enough to be a werewolf's mate, and I'm not strong enough to help you break your curse. Luna, that's not true. You're the strongest person I've ever met. I'm sorry, Kieran. I'm so sorry, but I can't do this. Please. His voice was barely a whisper in my mind. Please don't leave me. I know this is overwhelming. I know it's scary, but we can face it together. You don't have to be The pain in his voice was, but I forced myself to continue. I was always meant to be Some people just aren't meant. That's not true, he said desperately. Luna, you're my mate. I can feel it in every fiber of my being. You're the other half of my soul. Then I guess your soul is going to have to learn to live incomplete, I said, and the words tasted like poison in my mouth. The silence that followed was the most painful thing I had ever experienced. I could feel Kieran's anguish through our connection, could sense his confusion and heartbreak. But I could also sense something else, a growing determination, as if he was making a decision of his own. I understand, he said finally, and his voice had changed. It was colder now, more distant. If that's your choice, I won't try to stop you. But Luna, if you ever change your mind, if you ever realize that running away isn't the answer, you'll always have a place with me and my pack. Goodbye, Kieran, I whispered, and then I deliberately severed our mental connection, cutting off the bond that had become as essential to me as breathing. Very touching, Morgana said sarcastically. Though I must say, I expected more begging from the mighty Alpha. Perhaps he's not as attached to you as I thought. Are you satisfied? I asked, wiping away tears I hadn't realized I was crying. Almost. There's just one more thing. Morgana approached me, her hand glowing with dark energy. I need to make sure you can't change your mind later. What are you doing? Insurance, she said, pressing her glowing hand against my forehead. Pain exploded through my skull, and I felt something fundamental being torn away from me. The connection to Kieran that I had just severed was being permanently destroyed, along with my ability to hear any werewolf's voice. But more than that, I could feel my memories being altered, the supernatural experiences of the past few days becoming hazy and dreamlike. There, Morgana said as I collapsed to my knees. Now you'll remember this as nothing more than a strange dream. You'll pack your things tonight and leave Moonhaven in the morning, and you'll never think about werewolves or magic again. You said you'd let me keep my memories if I left willingly. I gasped. I lied, Morgana said with a shrug. I'm a dark witch, dear. Lying is what we do. As consciousness faded, I heard her add one final chilling detail. Oh, and don't worry about Kieran and his pack. I'll take very good care of them. They'll make excellent additions to my army. The last thing I remembered was the sound of her laughter echoing through the darkness, and the terrible knowledge that I had just doomed the only people who had ever made me feel like I belonged. But even as the magical compulsions settled over my mind, trying to convince me that everything had been a dream, some part of me, the part with wolf blood, the part that had connected with Kieran, fought back. Deep in my subconscious, where even Morgana's magic couldn't reach, the truth remained intact. I might forget the details, but I would never forget the feeling of being loved and accepted. And somehow, someway, I would find my way back to the silent Alpha who had given me his voice and his heart. The witch thought she had won, but she had underestimated the power of a bond forged by love and destiny. Her victory would be short-lived, because true mates always find their way back to each other. Always. I woke up in my cottage the next morning with the worst headache of my life and a suitcase packed beside my bed that I didn't remember packing. According to the note I found in my own handwriting, I had decided to leave Moonhaven and return to San Francisco for personal reasons. The strange thing was, I couldn't remember making that decision. The last clear memory I had was working late at the clinic, and then nothing. Just a vague sense that something important had happened, something that had changed everything. Dr. Chen was understanding when I called to give my notice, though she seemed surprised by my sudden departure. Are you sure you're all right, Luna? You seemed so happy here. I'm fine, I said automatically, though I wasn't sure that was true. I just need to go back to the city. Well, if you ever change your mind, you'll always have a job here. I loaded my car and drove away from Moonhaven without looking back, but as I reached the town limits, I felt a sharp pain in my chest, as if I were leaving behind something vital. I pulled over and sat in my car for 20 minutes, crying for reasons I couldn't understand. The drive back to San Francisco was a blur. I found a small apartment in the Mission District, and quickly got a job at a veterinary clinic near Golden Gate Park. On the surface, I was rebuilding my life successfully, but underneath, I felt hollow, as if I were going through the motions of living without actually being alive. For 3 months, I tried to convince myself that I was happy. I dated a nice accountant named David, made friends with my coworkers, and threw myself into my work. But every night, I had the same dream, a massive black wolf with silver eyes, standing in a forest clearing, howling with such heartbreak that I would wake up with tears on my cheeks. The dreams became more vivid as time passed, and with them came flashes of memories that felt too real to be imagination. A voice in my mind, deep and resonant, a pack of werewolves accepting me as one of their own, a beautiful, terrifying woman with eyes that changed color and a laugh like breaking glass. I started researching werewolf folklore online, telling myself it was just curiosity about the dreams. But the more I read, the more convinced I became that my dreams weren't dreams at all. They were memories. The breakthrough came when I found an article about a town called Moonhaven. The name hit me like a physical blow, and suddenly I was remembering fragments. Dr. Chen's kind smile, a clinic filled with injured animals, a forest path that led to a clearing with an ancient oak tree. Kieran, I whispered, and the name felt like coming home. The memories came flooding back then, not all at once but in pieces, like a puzzle slowly revealing its picture. I remembered the voice in my mind, the pack meeting, Elena's revelation about my wolf blood, and I remembered Morgana's threat, the choice she had forced me to make, the way she had torn away my memories, and my connection to Kieran. But most importantly, I remembered her final words. Don't worry about Kieran and his pack. I'll take very good care of them. I quit my job the next day and drove back to Moonhaven, my heart pounding with fear and hope in equal measure. What if I was too late? What if Morgana had already turned Kieran into her puppet? What if the pack was dead? The town looked exactly as I remembered it, but something felt wrong. The streets were too quiet, the few people I saw moved with a strange, listless quality, and there was an oppressive feeling in the air, as if a storm was perpetually about to break. I drove straight to the veterinary clinic, hoping to find Dr. Chen, but the building was dark and empty. A for rent sign hung in the window, and when I peered through the glass, I could see that all the equipment had been removed. Dr. Chen moved away about 2 months ago, said a voice behind me. I turned to see an elderly man I didn't recognize. He was human, but there was something in his eyes that suggested he knew more than he was saying. Do you know where she went? I asked. Nobody knows, he said quietly. A lot of people have been leaving town lately. Started right after that night when all the lights went out. What night? About 3 months ago. Power went out all over town for several hours. When it came back on, people started acting different, quieter, like they were all sleepwalking. My blood ran cold. Morgana's magic had affected the entire town, not just me. What about the forest? I asked. Have you seen anything strange in the forest? The old man's eyes widened slightly. You're not from around here anymore, are you? But you used to be, I can tell. What do you mean? You're awake, he said simply. Most folks in town, they're still sleeping, if you know what I mean. But you remember. Remember what? The wolves, he whispered. The pack that used to protect this town. They're gone now, all of them. Taken by the Shadow Lady. Shadow Lady? Lives up in the mountains. Some say she's a witch. Some say she's something worse. All I know is, ever since she came, this town's been dying a little more each day. I thanked the old man and drove toward the forest, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. If Kieran and his pack were gone, if Morgana had already claimed them, then I had failed in the worst possible way. I had abandoned the people who needed me most, and now they were paying the price for my cowardice. The forest path was overgrown, as if no one had used it in months. When I reached the clearing with the oak tree, I found it empty and silent. But as I stood there trying to figure out what to do next, I heard a sound that made my heart leap, a wolf's howl, faint and distant, coming from deeper in the forest. I followed the sound, pushing through undergrowth that seemed to grow thicker with every step. The howling continued, always just ahead of me, leading me deeper into the woods than I had ever gone before. As I walked, I became aware of other sounds, the rustle of large bodies moving through the trees, the soft pad of footsteps that matched my pace. I was being followed, but unlike my first night in these woods, I wasn't afraid. Whatever was out there, it felt familiar, protective. The howling led me to a cave hidden behind a waterfall. The entrance was narrow, barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through, but the howling was definitely coming from inside. I took a deep breath and entered the cave. The tunnel was dark and winding, but I could see light ahead. As I emerged into a large underground chamber, I gasped at what I saw. The entire pack was there, but they were trapped in what looked like cages made of shadow and dark energy. They were all in their wolf forms, and they appeared to be unconscious or under some kind of spell. But in the center of the chamber, in the largest cage, was Kieran. He was awake, and when he saw me, his silver eyes widened with shock and something that might have been hope. Luna? His voice in my mind was weak, strained, but unmistakably real. You came back. I ran to his cage, pressing my hands against the shadowy bars. They felt ice cold and seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. Kieran, I'm so sorry. I remember everything now. Morgana forced me to leave. She made me forget. But I'm here now. You shouldn't have come, he said, though I could hear the relief in his mental voice. It's a trap. She's been waiting for you. I don't care if it's a trap, I said fiercely. I'm not leaving you again. How touching, came Morgana's voice from the shadows. She materialized at the far end of the chamber, looking even more beautiful and terrible than I remembered. The little wolf blood returns to save her mate. Though I must say, you're 3 months too late. What have you done to them? Nothing permanent, Morgana said with a casual shrug. Yet. They're simply contained while I work on expanding my army. Did you know that werewolf packs from as far away as Canada have been mysteriously disappearing? Your Kieran has been quite helpful in luring them here. He would never help you willingly. Willingly? Oh, my dear child, who said anything about willingly? Morgana laughed, and the sound echoed off the cave walls like breaking glass. You see, while you were playing house in San Francisco, I've been perfecting my control over dear Kieran. Watch this. She made a gesture with her hand, and Kieran's eyes suddenly went blank. When he looked at me again, there was no recognition, no warmth, just empty obedience. Kieran, Morgana commanded, tell your former mate how much you've enjoyed serving me. I live to serve Morgana Blackthorn, Kieran said in my mind, but his voice was flat, emotionless. She is my true alpha now. No, I whispered, my heart breaking. Kieran, fight it. I know you're still in there. He can't hear you, Morgana said smugly. The curse has evolved, you see. What started as simple silence has become complete mental domination. He belongs to me now, body and soul. Then why keep me alive? If you have what you want, why not just kill me? Because, Morgana said, circling me like a predator, you're going to help me perfect the process. You see, controlling one alpha is useful, but controlling an alpha and his mate? That's exponentially more powerful. The bond between mates can be used to influence entire packs, entire regions. I'll never help you. Oh, but you will. Because if you don't, I'll start killing his pack members one by one, and I'll make him watch. I'll make him participate. And the beautiful part is, he'll remember everything afterward. Every life he took, every friend he betrayed, but he'll be powerless to stop himself. The cruelty of her plan was breathtaking. She didn't just want to control Kieran. She wanted to torture him with the memory of what he'd been forced to do. What do you want me to do? I asked, hating myself for the question, but knowing I had no choice. Submit to the mating bond, Morgana said simply. Let Kieran claim you as his mate, but do it while he's under my control. The bond will form, but it will be tainted by my magic. You'll become an extension of my will, just as he has. And if I refuse, then I start with the youngest pack member. Tyler, I believe his name is? Such a sweet boy. It would be a shame to watch Kieran tear out his throat. I looked at Kieran, hoping to see some sign that he was fighting the compulsion, but his eyes remained blank and cold. The man I had fallen in love with was gone, replaced by Morgana's puppet. But then I remembered something Elena had said about the bond between mates. If it was strong enough to let me hear Kieran's voice despite the curse, maybe it was strong enough to break through Morgana's control. I'll do it, I said. But I have one condition. You're hardly in a position to make demands. I want to perform the mating ceremony the traditional way, according to werewolf customs. If you want the bond to be as powerful as possible, it has to be done right. Morgana considered this. What exactly does that entail? The ceremony has to take place under the full moon, in a sacred space, with the pack as witnesses. And I took a deep breath. The male has to be in his wolf form when he claims his mate. Interesting, Morgana mused. And you think this will make the bond stronger? I know it will. Elena told me that traditional mating ceremonies create bonds that last for eternity. Isn't that what you want? Very well, Morgana agreed. The full moon is tomorrow night. We'll perform your little ceremony then. But Luna, her eyes flashed dangerously. If you're planning some kind of trick, remember that I have 3 centuries of experience dealing with clever little girls who think they can outsmart me. No tricks, I lied. I just want to do this right. Morgana waved her hand, and a smaller shadow cage appeared around me. You'll spend the night here thinking about your decision, and don't bother trying to reach Kieran mentally. My magic is blocking all supernatural communication in this cave. As Morgana disappeared into the shadows, I slumped against the bars of my cage. I had bought myself time, but I wasn't sure what good it would do. Even if I could somehow break through to Kieran during the ceremony, Morgana was too powerful for us to fight directly. But as I sat in the darkness, I began to remember other things Elena had told me about werewolf bonds and magic. Traditional mating ceremonies weren't just about creating connections between individuals. They were about connecting to the ancient magic that had created werewolves in the first place. And that magic was older and more powerful than anything Morgana could wield. If I could find a way to tap into that ancient power during the ceremony, maybe I could not only free Kieran, but break Morgana's hold on the entire pack. It was a desperate plan with almost no chance of success, but it was the only hope I had. Tomorrow night, under the full moon, I would either save the man I loved or die trying. As I closed my eyes and tried to rest, I whispered a prayer to whatever ancient spirits watched over werewolves and their mates. Please, let love be stronger than magic. Let the bond between true mates be unbreakable, even by the darkest sorcery. In the cage next to mine, Kieran's wolf form stirred slightly, and for just a moment, I could have sworn I saw a flicker of silver in his eyes. Not the blank silver of Morgana's control, but the warm, loving silver I remembered. Maybe, just maybe, some part of him was still fighting. And if he was fighting, then I would fight too, with everything I had. The final battle for our love and our freedom was about to begin. The next evening, Morgana led us to a clearing high in the mountains that I had never seen before. It was a place of ancient power. I could feel it humming in the air like electricity before a storm. Standing stones arranged in a perfect circle surrounded a flat area of ground that seemed to glow with its own inner light under the full moon. This place is older than my magic, Morgana admitted as she directed her shadow wolves to position the caged pack members around the circle. It was here when the first werewolves walked the earth. How fitting that it should witness the creation of my perfect mated pair. The pack members were still unconscious, but I noticed that some of them were beginning to stir. Elena's eyes were open, and when she looked at me, I saw awareness there, and hope. The ancient magic is strong here, Elena's voice whispered in my mind, so faint I almost missed it. Stronger than her curses. If you can reach it. Morgana spun around, her eyes flashing. I told you, no mental communication. I wasn't, Elena began, but Morgana silenced her with a gesture. No matter, the witch said. After tonight, you'll all be under my complete control anyway. Kieran stood in the center of the circle in his wolf form, his eyes still blank and empty. But as the moonlight grew stronger, I began to notice subtle changes in his posture. His ears twitched occasionally, and his head turned slightly toward sounds that Morgana couldn't hear. Begin the ceremony, Morgana commanded. I stepped into the circle, my heart pounding. I had no idea if my plan would work, but I had to try. In werewolf tradition, the ceremony begins with the female calling to her mate's true spirit, I said, making up the ritual as I went along but hoping it sounded authentic. Get on with it, Morgana snapped. I knelt in front of Kieran and placed my hands on either side of his massive wolf head. Kieran Blackwood, I said in a voice that carried across the entire clearing, I call to your true spirit. I call to the part of you that chose love over duty, that protected the innocent, that led with wisdom and compassion. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, so faintly I almost missed it, I heard his voice in my mind. Luna, is that really you? I'm here, I whispered, not daring to hope. I'm here, and I'm not leaving again. The compulsion, it's so strong. I can barely think, barely remember who I am. Then remember this, I said, pressing my forehead against his. Remember that you are Kieran Blackwood, alpha of the Moonhaven pack. Remember that you chose love over everything else. Remember that you are mine, and I am yours. Kieran's eyes flickered, and for a moment I saw the real him looking back at me. But then Morgana's magic reasserted itself, and the blankness returned. Enough talking, Morgana said impatiently. Complete the bond. The bond requires an exchange of vows, I said, still improvising. The male must acknowledge his mate before the ancient spirits. Then make him acknowledge you. Kieran, I said formally, do you take me as your mate, to love and protect for all eternity? Morgana's magic forced him to respond. I take you as my mate. But even as the compelled words left his mind, I felt something else, a deeper response that came from his true self, buried beneath layers of magical control. And I take you as my mate, I replied, to love and protect for all eternity. The moment the words left my lips, power began to flow between us. Not Morgana's dark magic, but something older, purer, the ancient force that had created the first bonds between werewolves and their mates. Now, Morgana said eagerly, let him claim you. Let the bond form under my power. This was the moment I had been waiting for. As Kieran moved toward me, guided by Morgana's compulsion, I reached out with my mind, not to him, but to the ancient magic of the place itself. Spirits of the first wolves, I whispered, I call upon you. This bond is being corrupted by dark magic. Help us reclaim what is rightfully ours. The standing stones began to glow brighter, and I felt power rushing through me like a river of liquid moonlight. It was overwhelming, intoxicating, and completely beyond anything I had ever experienced. What are you doing? Morgana demanded, but I could hear uncertainty in her voice for the first time. I'm calling upon magic older than yours, I said, my voice echoing with power that wasn't entirely my own. Magic that recognizes true bonds and rejects false ones. Kieran's eyes suddenly blazed with silver fire, and when he looked at me, I saw complete awareness there. Luna, he said, his mental voice strong and clear, I remember everything. I remember who I am, and I remember that I love you more than life itself. The ancient magic is breaking her hold, I realized. Kieran, can you reach the others? I'm trying, he said, his form beginning to shimmer as he prepared to shift back to human form. Maya, Tyler, Elena, wake up! Remember who you are! One by one, the pack members began to stir. The shadow cages that held them started to flicker and weaken as the ancient magic of the place pushed back against Morgana's dark spells. No! Morgana screamed, her beautiful facade finally cracking to reveal the monster beneath. I will not be defeated by some half-blood girl and her pathetic mate. She raised her hands, dark energy crackling between her fingers, but as she prepared to strike, something unexpected happened. The pack members, now fully awake and free from their cages, began to howl in unison. It wasn't just a sound. It was a calling, a summoning that reached out across the supernatural realm. What have you done? Morgana demanded. We've called for backup, Elena said, now in human form and grinning fiercely. Did you really think the Moonhaven pack was the only werewolf pack in existence? From the forest around the clearing came the sound of dozens of wolves approaching. Pack after pack that Morgana had been trying to capture or control had felt the call and come to help. The clearing was suddenly surrounded by werewolves of every size and color, all of them focused on the witch who had been terrorizing their kind. You cannot defeat me! Morgana shrieked, her form growing larger and more monstrous. I have power beyond your comprehension. You have power, Kieran said, now in human form and standing protectively in front of me. But we have something stronger. We have love, loyalty, and the blessing of the ancient spirits. Love? Morgana laughed bitterly. Love is weakness. No, I said, stepping up beside Kieran and taking his hand. Love is what gives us strength to fight for what matters. Love is what brought me back when your magic tried to keep me away. Love is what allowed Kieran to break through your control. And love, Elena added, her eyes glowing with power, is what will bind you and prevent you from ever hurting anyone again. The combined power of all the assembled packs, channeled through the ancient magic of the sacred site, began to weave itself around Morgana like chains of pure light. She fought against it, her dark magic lashing out in all directions, but she was outnumbered and outmatched. This isn't over, she screamed as the binding spell tightened around her. I'll find a way to escape, and when you do, Kieran said calmly, we'll be ready for you. All of us, united. The light grew brighter and brighter until I had to close my eyes. When it faded, Morgana was gone, not destroyed, but banished to a realm where her dark magic couldn't touch our world. Is it over? I asked, hardly daring to believe it. The immediate threat is over, Elena said. But Morgana was right about one thing. This isn't finished forever. She'll try to return eventually, but when she does, she'll find a very different world waiting for her. What do you mean? You've done something remarkable tonight, Luna, Elena explained. You've united werewolf packs that have been isolated from each other for decades. You've shown them that working together makes them stronger than any individual threat. We've done it, Kieran corrected, pulling me into his arms. We've done it together. As the other packs began to disperse, promising to stay in contact and work together in the future, Kieran and I found ourselves alone in the sacred circle with his pack family. So, Maya said with a grin, I guess this means you're officially our Luna now. If you'll have me, I said. Are you kidding? Tyler laughed. You just helped us defeat a centuries-old witch and united the werewolf community. I think we can overlook the fact that you're mostly human. Actually, Elena said thoughtfully, after tonight, I'm not sure how human you are anymore, Luna. The ancient magic has changed you. You're something new, a bridge between the human and werewolf worlds. I could feel the truth of her words. Something fundamental had shifted inside me during the ceremony. I was still myself, but I was also more than I had been before. What happens now? I asked Kieran. Now, he said, his voice full of love and promise. We go home, we rebuild our pack, we protect our territory, and we live the life we fought so hard to have together. And the curse? Is it really broken? Completely, Kieran said, speaking aloud for the first time in 5 years. His voice was deep and resonant, even more beautiful in reality than it had been in my mind. I can speak, I can lead my pack properly, and most importantly, I can tell you every day how much I love you. I love you too, I said, and kissed him under the light of the full moon, surrounded by our pack family and blessed by ancient magic. 6 months later, Kieran and I had a proper wedding ceremony in the same sacred circle where we had defeated Morgana. Representatives from werewolf packs across North America came to witness the union of the alpha who had found his voice and the woman who had helped him reclaim it. Dr. Chen returned to Moonhaven and reopened the veterinary clinic, with me as her full partner. The town itself seemed to come alive again as Morgana's lingering influence faded completely. And sometimes, On nights when the moon is full and the ancient magic runs strong, I can hear the voices of werewolves from packs hundreds of miles away, all connected by the bonds of love and loyalty that we helped forge. The silent alpha had found his voice, but more than that, he had found his purpose. Together, we had created something new, a network of werewolf packs united not by fear or dominance, but by love and mutual protection. Our story had begun with a curse that stole a voice, but it had become something much greater, a tale of how love can overcome any darkness, how true mates will always find each other, and how sometimes the most unlikely heroes can change the world. The ancient spirits had blessed our bond, and that blessing would protect not just us, but all the werewolves who looked to us for leadership and hope. We had become more than mates. We had become the guardians of a new age for our kind. And in the quiet moments between the chaos of leading a pack and protecting our territory, Kieran would hold me close and whisper, "Thank you for hearing my voice when no one else could. Thank you for giving me a voice when I thought I had none," I would reply. Because that's what true love does. It doesn't just complete you, it transforms you into someone capable of extraordinary things. And our love had transformed not just us, but an entire world. The silent alpha was silent no more, and his voice, our voice, would echo through the werewolf community for generations to come. Legal disclaimer: this story is entirely fictional and created for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real persons, living or dead, real events, or real institutions is purely coincidental. The werewolf elements are fantasy and not based on any real supernatural beliefs or practices.